Yesterday was International Pink Day, a day to call attention to the problem of bullying among youth. Of course, we know that young bullies more often than not grow up into adult bullies, and if you're unlucky enough to work for one, you know how miserable your life can be.
Also known as psychological harassment or emotional abuse, bullying involves the conscious, repeated effort to wound and destroy another person, not with violence, but with words and actions. Bullying damages the physical, emotional, and mental health of the person who is targeted. When it happens in the workplace, victims are often left hopeless, needing to continue to work, but unable to cope with the abuse being heaped at them. Tragically, some commit suicide to escape the pain.
Joining us now in our Niagara Bureau is Lisa Barrow. She's a healthy workplace consultant and author of the book In Darkness, Light Dawns, Exposing Workplace Bullying. Lisa, aren't there labor laws on the books to deal with bullying in the workplace these days?
Well, as of June 15th, there will be. The new legislation in Ontario will focus not only on workplace violence, but on harassment, and harassment covers bullying.
Yeah, in the introduction, we mentioned that it can be so severe that people, victims of bullying in the workplace, actually commit suicide. As adults, isn't that extreme? I mean, shouldn't we as adults be able to deal with someone who is somewhat abusive?
Well, what typically happens with harassment or bullying is that it's a repeat behavior that the person eventually gets to the point where they cannot handle it anymore. And because they may not have any recourse as to how to handle the situation or the bully, the person feels hopeless. And if they get to the stage where they're feeling hopeless, then more likely than not, they may consider a suicide, or in some situations may consider homicide as a way of getting rid of the problem of bullying in their lives.
Can you give us some examples of this type of bullying that you're referring to?
Well, for example, the way that I like to look at bullying is it's similar to water torture, where basically you think water torture, drops of water on your forehead, very innocuous and harmless for individuals. But if it occurs over an extended period of time, eventually the person breaks. It's the same thing with bullying in the workplace. You may have someone, for example, your colleague or your boss, who is intimidating you on a regular basis, and eventually you break because you cannot take it anymore. I personally have spoken to individuals who have considered committing suicide, or who have had loved ones who have committed suicide because of how they're being bullied in the workplace. So in the workplace, it's a little bit different than bullying in the schools in that it's a little more subtle, and it's hard for people to identify what is going on and what the bullying is.
Lisa, some people might say, look, you're being bullied at work, it's too bad, go get another job. Or you're enabling your boss by not saying something, and as time goes on, it gets worse and worse. What do you say to people who suggest that it may be partly your fault?
Well, a lot of times, and I've heard that argument as well, that maybe the person is weak, or maybe the person is sensitive. And the thing is that when you're being bullied, when you're a target, for example, you may not be able to leave your job because you have children who are in college, or you may not have the experience or education to move forward into another position, and so you're strapped. And with the economy the way that it is, a lot of people are feeling trapped, and they are very fearful of saying anything about being bullied, and so they take it, and it builds and builds and builds, and eventually it turns into some type of physical ailment or anxiety, depression, or, as I said earlier, some people may resort to trying to commit suicide or homicide.
And then there's the bosses who say, well, it's my business. I yell a lot, I scream a lot, but we're a successful company, and I don't hear any complaints from my other employees.
Well, they're probably not complaining because they're fearful. And when you're in a situation where you are being bullied, you may not have the strength or the courage to stand up to the bully. Because typically what happens is, if I say to my boss, I don't like the behavior that you're displaying towards me, and it's bullying behavior, more likely than not, the bullying will enhance, and it will be even worse for me. And sometimes what happens is, not only will the boss bully me, but he or she may solicit the input from other people, and so now I have my team members who are bullying me, and I get to the point where if I go to human resources, they may not address the issue, so I'm feeling like I'm left all alone. And so with this new legislation that's coming in on June 15th, it gives the bullied individual an option to talk to human resources, to contact someone outside the organization if they continue to be bullied.
And if you do, I mean, if there's no human resources department, if you're working for a small operation, you said you can contact someone outside the company. Who is that? What is that?
Well, you could contact the Ministry of Labor as of June 15th. And let them know that harassment is occurring in the workplace, and then they would send out inspectors and do an investigation. So this is why the new law that is coming into effect June 15th will help to hold not only the bully accountable, but the employer accountable.
Isn't that a little dangerous, though? I mean, you're going to get disgruntled employees who may abuse it.
Well, you have to file a complaint in good faith, and this is where the investigation comes in. So once you do the investigation, if it's a disgruntled employee, then obviously you could follow the disciplinary procedure. But there are quite a few people, if they're at that point where they're willing to speak out about their bullying, it's probably more likely than not happening, and they're at their wits' end and they want to do something. And so that's why it's so important for employers to understand that this bill, and I've heard this from employers, that, oh, it's just government intervening with our business. But it's similar to other laws where when you have individuals who are not being respectful in the workplace, who are not treating individuals as they should, then sometimes the government has to step in and say, this type of behavior is illegal.
Right. The book is called In Darkness, Light Dawns, Exposing Workplace Bullying. Lisa Barrow, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck with the book, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.